When we were planning this presentation for you, we thought it would be important for you to hear from leaders of other successful downtown or business improvement districts. At this time, I would like to introduce Malcom Johnstone, Executive Director of the Westchester Business Improvement District. Malcom has been a downtown development specialist since 1985 and joined the Westchester Business Improvement District as Executive Director in June of 2001. He previously served as manager of several districts in Oregon and Idaho, including providing technical assistance to more than 40 downtowns in the state of Oregon.
My role, I believe, is to provide you with an example of what a town that's perhaps not quite as nice as Lebanon can do when given the right tools to do what the vision of the community dictates. And you can see by that picture there that is indeed me. But that's me back in '01. That's when I started, June of 2001. And it has been an extraordinary experience for me to do this. I'm on my fourth town. I started in 1985. And when I got to Westchester, and the mayor, by the way, has come up with some questions. I'm going to attempt to answer those questions. And one of the things that she asked is, well, what was the state of Westchester back when the bid began? And when I got there, this is indicative of how people felt about Westchester. What type of problems did we have there? We had a morale problem that I could not believe. There were people that told me, when you go down the street, roll up your windows. And I didn't even have a car. And they said, when you walk down this particular street, when you get to a particular corner, make sure you jog over to another street. And when I walked down the street, there's nothing the matter with the street. The town was wonderful and charming. And yet in the eyes of the residents and the businesses, it was a dilapidated town. It looked like this. Now, this is an extreme example. I'm going to actually use this as an example of what a healthy community can do. This was a blighted building. It was blighted when I got there, several years before I got there. And a year ago, last October, this happened to that building. It finally fell down in a rainstorm. This should have been a tear down. But it wasn't a teardown. And the reason it wasn't is that there was enough value that we had garnered for ourselves over the last decade or so to allow this building to be rebuilt. And you can see in these two pictures what the end result was. A property owner came in, he bought the building in its dilapidated state, paid maybe $200,000 for it, can you imagine? And then sunk, I don't know how much money to restore it this way, two-story building. And in most other towns that I'm aware of, this could not have happened. This should have been a teardown, but it wasn't. He restored this building, put in a steak shop, you know, like, because we're close to Philly, calls it Jack's Steaks and Shakes. And now it's right in the center of town. Nice little icon. Women no longer cross the street to avoid walking by it. It's one of those wonderful success stories that could only have happened when the value increased in the town. And I'll give you the numbers of that. In 1999, the market value of downtown Westchester was less than $50 a square foot. By 2003, after we had started getting things going, we managed to get that up to about $60, maybe $70 a square foot. 2004, we saw it double. So well over $100, $120, $140. And I have to tell you, I thought that was a pretty good thing to happen from an economic point of view. We were garnering some value so that things like this could be done. And then we saw the property values double again. And we continue to see them hopefully double again. For a while, they touched upon $400 a square foot, allowing property owners to invest in their properties. Things that had been vacant lots were becoming banks and hotels. And it can only happen when your property values are up around $200, $300, $400 a square foot. This is in the center of town. This never lost its value. It's a Thomas U. Walter Courthouse. It's a historic courthouse. Right now it's abandoned. It's not being used by the county. That's a little distressful to us. But at least we have a say in what can be used. And eventually it will go back into reuse. But the county is also demonstrating that they want to see an investment. They made an investment well over $1 million to keep this building from falling down. It was opened in 1846. It's iconic to Westchester, and we need to keep buildings like this. If you go to, there's a little town in Western, it's Indiana, that's it, in Western Pennsylvania. They had a wonderful historic courthouse. They had to sell it. It became just an office building. It has a golden dome on it. We shouldn't have to do that to our community. This is also iconic. It's the only skyscraper in downtown Westchester, and it kind of sets the stage. This building currently is going to be abandoned. Everybody who's there is moving out because there are new places that they can move to right in the downtown. So we're seeing a shift, and it's our job as a downtown to encourage people to come in and begin to reuse things, such as the F&M building right there. And one of the ways that we do that is by visioning. And the materials that I brought today, I laid out on the table. I hope that you help yourselves to them. But perhaps the most important one is the one we call future. This is indeed the future of Westchester, our future, the way we see the future. It's only 12 pages long. It has lots of pictures in it. But it talks about smart development, and it identifies the developers so that we have a human relationship to what's happening in the downtown. These are local people. These are not people who are coming in from Philly or someplace else, God forbid New York or someplace. They are not coming in from out of town. They're our neighbors that are coming in and making an investment. And in fact, I will show you perhaps our to-date greatest development, which is not the other county building. That was a $100 million Justice Center that went up, largest development we'll ever see. And fortunately, when you go to other towns, a lot of them do the cheapest they can do. This one, for its size, they did a good job. They believed in the community enough to invest a few extra dollars. And then we have programs that will add to the beautification. You know, it's amazing what simply a few flowers will do downtown. We have a budget of $40,000 to keep downtown currently in pansies, but soon to be in whatever those type of flowers are. And then we have the story of Westchester. And this one, there's a building called the Lincoln Building, and it's where Lincoln's first biography was written. And that biography launched his presidential career. And that's a story that we tell and retell and retell. And in fact, you can read about it in one of the history magazine that you can pick up there. And it's those type of stories that instill to our neighbors, the folks who live there, what Westchester is about. And to our visitors on how special this eastern seaboard used to be a village, and now it's a borough, has become. And then we have events such as this Twilight Criterium, the only professional sporting event to come into downtown. We close off all the streets on a Saturday night, and the bicyclists all go around. Everybody has a great time. The events that we have, nearly one per week in Westchester, I consider that to be a little too many. Can you imagine going to an event every single week? But we have something like a run or a bike race or a parade going on all the time. But they bring in tens of thousands of people, and we're considered to be a destination for events and activities. But the one that I wanted to talk about was a hotel. A hotel is not open in Westchester in 100 years. We used to have a dozen hotels in Westchester because it's crossroads of the Pottstown Pike and the Wilmington Pike and the Philadelphia Pike. So people who were traveling from one place or another would spend the evening here in Westchester. And the hotels were quite elegant. They were considered to be the best outside of Philadelphia. But they were all abandoned. The last one closed in the 1970s, and now we have the Hotel Warner that's coming back. That was a vacant lot. They actually had a theater. It was the Warner Theater. The auditorium, which was about the size of this space, became so dilapidated it was condemned, torn down, could only have been a parking lot. That's all that the economy would support in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. But now, in this new century, we can build a hotel. I think the value of that was well over $20 million. It's kind of an upscale hotel, 80 rooms, and that generates what I consider to be the best thing, customers. That will generate 30,000, 40,000 customers a year once it's going at 90% occupancy, which I understand in towns like Lebanon and certainly other communities in the area, Scranton and all of that, the downtown hotels are running 90% occupancy. And the merchants and the restaurants love it, because those folks are all looking for something to do. Shopping is a great activity, and eating in a restaurant, well, that's what you have to do when you're traveling, right? And finally, one thing that I would hope that you all keep in mind is that it doesn't happen overnight. And the mayor asked a question, how long does it take to actually begin to see results? They established the BID in 1998. I looked it up as a municipal authority. They did not hire me until 2001. So that's 3 years just to get an organization going. And as I got there, and I'm dealing with a lot of tears and bleakness, it took another maybe 2 years before we began to see the actual results. And you heard me talking about the years where the economy is beginning to go up. And in order to change that attitude, we put together a brochure. This looks like the type of brochure that you would want to have your visitors and your neighbors have and read, but it was actually for our downtown people, because the way they saw downtown in that first slide was not how downtown actually was. We fought so much about this. We fought about everything. We fought about the color. We fought about the logo. We fought about the pictures in here because the pictures looked too good to be part of Westchester. We were having fights about pictures that made Westchester look good. And our tagline, I love your tagline. I think it's a great tagline, but our tagline was Westchester, the perfect town, which everybody complained about. But the mayor, back at that time, he began to use that phrase, Westchester, the perfect town. Maybe not quite yet, but we're on our way, he said. And pretty soon everybody was saying, Westchester, the perfect town. Sometimes as a question, and more often as a comment. We abandoned this one pretty early on. We had done the job. There was nothing to promote the assets of Westchester. And the one bit of advice I would give to you is that you have to be asset driven. You simply should not be going in to resolve whatever issues you may have downtown. No, you capitalize on your assets. And when you do that, morale begins to go up. People see the downtown for what it really is, as a wonderful third place for people to gather, to socialize, to have dinner at your restaurants, to shop in your sole proprietorships, not go out to the corporate malls. And it is publications like this that tout that. You can take them with you. I know that our marketing budget tends to be a little heavier than most other folks, and that's the way Westchester wanted it to be, and that's what I do, is a lot of marketing. We spend about $70,000 this year. We'll get somewhere around 5 million impressions in advertising and web type of stuff. But we need to do that because that's how people begin to interact. That's the first step to doing something to get people talking in a positive fashion about the community that is your community. So these are the very first steps. I think of BIDS as the first thing that you do to begin to change for the better. And you do it in highly visible ways, and you replicate that on an annual basis. So I wouldn't sell yourself short on marketing your town. Now I know that tourism may not be quite your thing, but there are people who are going to think about Lebanon as a destination. Maybe they live in Lancaster. Maybe they live as far away as as Westchester, but you want them to think as positive as possible because they could become your next neighbor. And it will be the marketing that you do, the positive marketing, that will help convince them, put them on track to think of Lebanon as a place that they want to be, whether it's for a night or for the rest of their lives. You need to have that. You need to have an influx of people. Before I got to Westchester, the population was actually shrinking. You were talking about our population of 18,000. What you didn't tell everybody is that 14,000 of those folks are college students, because we have Westchester University. Now, 14,000 is that exactly. That's how many college students there are there. 10,000 actually live in, or 8,000 rather, live in the borough. So we're actually just a little, not much more than a village of 10,000 people, permanent residents there in Westchester. It's 1.8 square miles. We do, however, to make up for perhaps a little shortage population, we have 40 bars. And that, when things get too woeful, that's where we go, to the bars. Talk among ourselves about what a great place other communities are. Why can't we be more like them? So that ends my little part. I want to thank you very much for having me here. I'll kick it back over to you. And I can't remember what the last slide was. Was that?
That's the slide.
Okay. There was one small thing that I forgot to mention on this project. This is wayfinding, and this took us 5 years to just get this up off the ground. But we have tenacity to do it. The hotel, 10 years. So that's what the best part about having a bid is. It gives you the time to do the really great things.